Hello guys, welcome back to Learning Forensic Science with Anchal Kapoor. In this series whereby we are understanding about cannabis sativa, we have come up with a very important concept of understanding the chemical composition of the main active principal component of the plant cannabis sativa, which is delta 9 trans THC, as we have already discussed in our previous video. So, we have already studied that there are more than 85 chemical compounds which are produced by the plant cannabis sativa, which are classified under the broader category of cannabinoids. So, cannabinoids are the group of chemical components that are produced by the plant cannabis sativa. Right? Now, these cannabinoids belong to the chemical family of, we have already studied this in previous video. Cannabinoids belongs to the chemical family of terpenophenols. Right? Today we will see the chemical structural composition, and then you would be much clearer about the concepts of cannabinoids, terpenophenols, and so on. Right? Now, one of the major, most important cannabinoid among all of this group was delta 9 trans THC. Delta 9 trans THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol. Tetrahydrocannabinol. Now, why was this the most important amongst these 85 compounds? Was because this delta 9 trans THC, it produces a psychoactive effect on the human central nervous system, due to which this drug is under consideration, and many of the policies have been made to regulate the production, stock piling, and transfer, import, export of the following compound, of the following plant, which actually produces a drug of abuse whose major active principle is delta 9 trans THC. Right? But this is the major psychoactive compound, right? There is also one other compound which is called delta 8 trans THC. We will see today, like what does delta 9, delta 8 mean, why are we using such terms. In this video it would be all clear to you, right? So there is another compound delta 8 trans THC which also produces psychoactive effect, but this delta 8 trans THC is present in a very low concentration in the plant. That is why it does not get extracted properly, and its use or its abuse is not at that extent to what the extent delta 9 trans THC holds, right? So there are these two compounds, delta 9 trans THC and delta 8 trans THC, which produce psychoactive effect on the human central nervous system, right? Apart from these two, see, there are 85 cannabinoids now. So these are two cannabinoids. So, apart from delta 9 trans THC, there are two other cannabinoids also. One is cannabinol and another is cannabidiol. Do you know what is the significance of cannabinol and cannabidiol? Cannabinol is actually a major breakdown product, of the chemical delta 9 trans THC. Trans THC. And do you know about cannabidiol? Cannabidiol is a chemical substance which, on exposure to heat, or you may say sunlight, a part of cannabidiol gets converted to the isomeric form, which is delta 9 trans THC. So, see, we have cannabidiol, and what is the important purpose of cannabidiol is that when it is exposed to heat, when it is exposed to sunlight, a part of cannabidiol gets converted into delta 9 trans THC. So, cannabidiol on exposure to heat is getting converted into delta 9 trans THC. So, can we call cannabidiol a precursor of delta 9 trans THC? Yes. So cannabidiol is acting as a precursor of delta 9 trans THC. Now, if you ask me that cannabinol and cannabidiol, are they having any effect on the central nervous system of humans? The answer to this question is no. Cannabinol and cannabidiol both are inert. They do not exert any effect on human central nervous system, right? Both of them are inert, but both of them, cannabinol and cannabidiol, are somehow linked with delta 9 trans THC, which makes their relevance to forensic perspective a bit significant, right? Now, okay, cannabidiol, you understand that when we expose or when we give heat energy to cannabidiol, a part of it gets converted into delta 9 trans THC. So cannabidiol is acting as a precursor of delta 9 trans THC. Right. Now what about cannabinol? We have written it is a major breakdown product. What do you mean by breakdown product? Breakdown product means delta 9 trans THC gets converted into cannabinol. Delta 9 trans THC gets converted into cannabinol when delta 9 trans THC's role is no more there, when it gets break down due to effect of certain environmental factors, right? Delta 9 trans THC gets converted. So what can be the factors? It can be excessive heat, it can be due to age, right? When delta 9 trans THC gets degraded, it gets converted into cannabinol, right? So to understand this whole slide in a easier language, we can say, so cannabidiol is acting as a precursor to delta 9 trans THC. तो डेल्टा 9 ट्रांस टीएचसी को अगर हम मेन रखें, कैनाबिडियोल क्या है? प्रीकर्सर, और कैनाबिनॉल क्या है? ब्रेक डाउन प्रोडक्ट. क्या है? ब्रेक डाउन प्रोडक्ट. This is the psychoactive component. This is also inert, and this is also inert. So cannabidiol and cannabinol have no action on human nervous system. Only delta 9 trans THC is having psychoactive effect on the central nervous system of human beings. Right? Is this relation a bit understandable? Should we move on? Should we move forward? Okay. Coming to the chemical structure of the compound delta 9 trans THC. Okay, now talking about the chemical structure of delta 9 trans THC. Okay, I have already told you it's a terpenophenolic compound. So there would be terpene group also, and there would be phenol ring also. It is a tricyclic compound. So there would be 3 carbon cycles, right? One that we have is phenol. So benzene ring with the OH group is called phenol, and at meta position we are having C5H11 group. You can write it as C5H11, or you can draw it in the ring with the bond structure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C1, C2, C3, C4, C5. We can draw it like this. So this is the phenol. And adjacent to the phenol ring, there is another ring with the oxygen, right? And on top of it, there is another cyclohexane ring. So there are 3 rings in this structure that we are talking about, right? Now, in this cyclohexane ring, this is the delta 9 position. At the delta 9 position, there is a double bond in this cyclohexane ring. That is why it is called delta 9 trans THC, not trans filter. Delta 9 is because there is at the delta 9th position, there is a double bond. At the position of double bond, there is a methyl group above it. Now, adjacent to this oxygen, there are 2 CH3 groups. And there is one hydrogen here which is above the plane. And there is one hydrogen here which is below the plane. So since these two are having opposite positions, it's called trans. If they both would be projected outwards from the plane, or if they both would be inside the plane, then it would be cis position, because of one is ejecting from the plane and one is going inside the plane, it is called trans delta 9 THC, right? Is this structure clear to you? This structure belongs to the delta 9 trans THC. Now, do you know what? If from the structure of trans delta 9 THC, do you know how should I make the structure of cannabinol? Cannabinol, as you all know, it is a breakdown product. Do you know how it looks like? So in this structure of delta 9 trans THC, in the structure of delta 9 trans THC, if this cyclohexane ring becomes a benzene ring, it becomes cannabinol. It becomes the same structure of delta 9 trans THC, but in place of this cyclohexane ring, there has been 2 more double bonds added and it becomes a benzene ring. Then it forms the structure of cannabinol. This is the structure of cannabinol, right? From the structure of cannabinol, if I remove these 2 double bonds, it again becomes the structure of delta 9 trans THC. And do you know how should we make the structure of cannabidiol? How should we make the structure of cannabidiol? If I remove this one bond between oxygen and these, so one hydrogen would be transferred with the oxygen and it would form a double bond. So it would be CH2 double bond C single bond CH3, right? Got this concept? This now becomes the cannabidiol, which is a precursor to delta 9 trans THC. Becomes a precursor to delta 9 trans THC. So this is cannabidiol. Before that we studied delta 9 trans THC, and before that we studied cannabinol. Right? Is there any problem with these structures? So this was the presentation of the chemical structural component of the major active component present in the plant Cannabis sativa, which is delta 9 trans THC. It is very important that you must remember the outlay of these structures, because it can come in your exams, your UGC NET JRF exam or your fact exam that you must have been preparing for, right? So keep these structures in mind, and you will see me in my next video covering the other topics that are remaining for the plant Cannabis sativa. See you then.